Hello, and on the gaming table today, we're taking another look at the idea I've been putting together for a war game. So this is basically test number 2. So here you can see this game is a little bit bigger than the last one I did. Two things here. I'm using about almost double the number of figures to kind of see how it goes at a larger scale. And I've also expanded the grid size a little bit more table space going on here. So we've got the Dark Elves on the right going up against the Chaos on the left. And a variety of units that you would normally see in, say, Warmaster, pretty much those kinds of units represented here as well. And we'll just kind of see how it goes. So one of the things I added in here compared to the last game is a bit more terrain. I wanted to see the effects of some of the terrain rules that I've been thinking of and how they play out. And so here you can see hills and some woods and other bits of cover here as well. So yeah, it's just trying to figure out how those go here as the game goes on. So at the top, the Dark Elves started to collapse the flank of the Chaos line at the top of the screen, and at the bottom a little bit later, Chaos would do something similar to the Dark Elf left flank towards the bottom of the picture here. And so that was interesting again to see how that went. Once the flanks started to fold, kind of how that affected the middle of the battle. Also, the Dark Elves have got a lot more shooting, obviously, than what I did before with Norse versus Chaos. So here it was really to test out how those shooting rules work too. Another thing I was testing out here was like the bloodiness of the combats. There's a lot of pushback, as you can see, with the combats, and it's really a choice of when that happens, like how bad is it, basically. Can units survive being pushed back and then get back in the fight, or once they start getting pushed back, do they get kind of worn down too far to be able to kind of continue in a meaningful way? So actually this test is one where it's a little bit more of a bloody version, and then I actually did another one the next day where I looked at kind of adjusting the rules so it's less bloody and kind of seeing what effect that had, and I'll put that video up later so you might be able to see the differences. One of the noticeable differences between the two sides here is you can see that Chaos is basically one line, whereas the Dark Elves have kind of a supported line. They've got a line in front, line in the rear, so they've kind of got rear support for their units. Now there is a rule in there that assists you when you've got rear support in the rules I'm doing here, but it was interesting to see how that really didn't come too much into play, and whether or not it's better to have a longer, kind of thinner line or a shorter, deeper one. It seems at the moment that going longer and thinner, wider and thinner, seems to be the better move, and I want to consider whether or not that's something that's kind of the intent. It might be okay like that. It'd be something to keep testing as I go through different versions here. Of course, that's the benefit of kind of creating some rules and trying them out yourself and being able to adjust them. All of these things are choices, right? So for example, the choice that when flanks collapse, it's really bad for the center. That's a kind of a choice that you make. Supported lines, should they be powerful or should they have a small bonus? These are all choices we make as we're figuring out what are the ways that we want this game to look and feel when it plays out. And kind of on that note, as you can see the battle progressing here in Chaos getting into the Dark Elf left flank, you can see that the battle is starting to kind of devolve. The lines are falling apart. It's turning into a mess. And that's actually a choice. That's kind of actually the way I want it to go, is that things get messy and then it gets down to those smaller decisions of what do you do in different situations based on the messiness of the battle. It's not very controllable with some of these things. The punch and counter punch you can't always plan for, you can't always predict. And so in this case, that's a part of the design. I want it to turn into a mess, as it were. And so it gives you lots of choices in that way, because it's really that kind of decision-making capacity that you have, or also the fact that you can't make all of the decisions that you want to make. Where do you want to put your focus and what do you want to try and do? That's actually part of the design idea behind this game. It does look messy, and I'm actually kind of happy with that at the end of the day. And so in one way, it's like the game can kind of reward you if you think ahead and have a good plan and kind of stick to it. If you do that, it doesn't get as messy, or the messiness is kind of a bit more controllable. Whereas if you just kind of go with the flow, it's going to turn into a mess and it's probably going to hurt you. So again, part of the design, the having a plan before you go in and trying to run with that plan as best you can, not just reacting to the enemy. And then, as I said, as it gets messy, what do you do in those sorts of situations? That's where I find it's quite interesting. So in this battle, as you can see the state of it now, I mean, the Dark Elves had a plan to go around the Chaos flank at the top, Chaos had a similar plan to go around the flank at the bottom. Fairly simple plan because I'm playing both sides, right? But it turned out here that while the Dark Elves did do that initially, then they kind of got a bit distracted by what was in front of them and taking opportunistic combats and charges and things like that. Chaos, it took a bit more time to develop, but then they stuck with that plan, and some of their later moves were just purely that single idea of rolling up the Dark Elf line, and it pretty much worked. I mean, that's kind of how it played out. They focused on that, and they got it done. So at the end of the day here, Chaos had taken a bit of damage, but not actually that much. The Dark Elves took a lot more damage, and eventually kind of their morale would have collapsed, and it would have been the game for them. As I said, though, this is kind of the bloody version, and I want to kind of see what happens when I do a less bloody version. So I've actually played that game out as well. I'll try and get that video up in the next day or two with a little commentary as well. Yeah, but I mean, just looking at this battle, it was obviously a battle. There was lots of decisions going on, as you can see me tapping the table at different times, trying to figure out what to do next. Also, just, yeah, it's quite a lot of fun. I mean, it actually took me about 2 hours to play this out, but it didn't feel like it as I was going through it. Considering different things about the rules as I play it out. And I find it enjoyable. Then again, I know these things are not for everyone. Maybe people don't like this style or this design kind of intent. But anyway, I had a bit of fun with it, and, it looked like a good messy old war game to me. Anyway, I hope you found that a bit interesting. Thanks for watching, and if you've got any comments, put them below. Otherwise, we'll see you again very soon.